Hello, I am back talking about Hell's Kitchen. Um, we are at the top 12 now out of 20. We just said goodbye to Antonio with a collective. Eh. You'd think I'd feel worse considering I said at the beginning I was rooting for all the New Englanders. He's from New Hampshire. But yeah, Antonio was pretty pretty forgettable. And now that I think about it, most people from New Hampshire are pretty forgettable. I can say that. I've been there many times. But moving on to this new episode, let's just get right into it. Starts with Henry saying that he's happy to have Jada on the team. And it shows Anaya hugging Jada goodbye again, which we saw at the end of the last episode. Then we see the red team discussing Jada leaving. Karen Marie says that every kitchen should have mom energy in it. Sorry, just something just flickered on my screen. It caught me off guard for a second there. So we get the intro, and then it shows everybody just chilling in the dorms. And suddenly, a mariachi band comes in because why not? So they put on a little show and they start to leave. And the last one out has a sign on his back that says, "Follow us." Yeah, they all probably should have figured this had something to do with the challenge for the day. So they head down to the restaurant. Something big is covered up with a big sheet. Ramsey says that if the mariachi band wasn't proof enough, they will be cooking Mexican food today. Henry says, "Awesome." And, he might do well in this challenge. Texans love Mexican food a lot, considering a lot of them don't love Mexicans. But that's beside the point. Um, anyway, Ramsey, and I just noticed a typo here. Ramsey says they're going to be playing guacamole. 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 I'm not quite sure how it was pronounced. I just wrote guacamole, but it's presented like whack-a-mole. The sous chefs lift the sheet, and it's a giant avocado. There's a big hole where the pit is, and it's surrounded by 6 bowls. Ellie calls it cute. Interesting word choice. Ramsey announces the 6 proteins that they're going to be cooking with, the 6 on each team. So each person, each team member gets one. And he tells the teams to decide who gets what. Henry hears that Alexandra is doing prawns, so he takes it for himself. Alexandra points out, well, Alexandra notices that he did that, and she points out they've gone against each other a few times, and they keep tying with each other. And the way this works is one person per protein crawls into the middle of the avocado to take a whack at the ingredients like it's whack-a-mole. So first up is the battle of the pork tenderloin, Ellie versus John. John admits Mexican is not his forte. He really just he just eats it. He doesn't really cook it too much. Ellie's the one playing whack-a-mole or guacamole. Guacamole. I, I'm just gonna let this one go. Ellie whacks poblano chili, tequila, black beans, plantains, and cream cheese. She tried twice to get one particular ingredient. It was possibly rice. That was what it looked like in the episode, but not 100% sure. That being said, she still thinks she can make it work with what she has. Next up, the next protein, flat iron steak. Anthony does the whacking, and he only managed to get queso fresco and Roma tomatoes. Karen Marie makes an interesting comment. She jokes, "This is what you get when you leave a man in charge of shopping." And that is fair. I am terrible at shopping. Sorry, this typo's driving me crazy. There we go. All right, so next up, we've got Red Snapper, and it's Anaya versus Chris. Now, judging from Anaya's form, she has never played whack-a-mole before. And, I started thinking about it. Whack-a-mole is kind of a thing that stopped with millennials, my generation. I remember playing it. I remember seeing people play it, but I also know that, like, by the time I was in my teens, it had pretty much died off. Like, the kids weren't really into it anymore. That was when Gen Z was just starting to get old enough to play games in arcades. So, her ingredients, she gets beets, chayote, chayote, mango, and pepitas. Never heard of chayote and pepitas before. She calls it a terrible mix. In my head, I'm thinking, Chris could have done this one. Chris is 38 years old. He was born in the 80s. He probably would have been the whack a mole champ if the entire cast had to do it. So, next up, chicken thighs. Sydney versus Jaden. The first thing Sydney whacks is anchovies, and she is immediately filled with regret. Besides that, she gets avocado, yellow squash, rice, tortilla, and napalm. No clue what those last two are. Yeah, I'm not an expert on Mexican cuisine by any means. Next up, red prawns. Alexander versus Henry. He gets red cabbage, jicama, endive, and cassava, which I have never heard of. And there's a lot of surprise reactions to the endive. And I was also a little surprised because really that's something you see more in like French cuisine. So yeah, that was an interesting pick. Last up, skirt steak. And it's the two former teammates, Jada versus Lisa. Jada only gets corn, guajillo, and chayote. Ramsey notes it's minimal, but sometimes less is more. So you never can tell. So they have 45 minutes to cook, and they get to work. By the way, hello to my first viewer. Thank you for joining. Lisa is doing a cream corn base, and she's pickling the chayote and marinating the steak. She notes that spice is everything in Mexico, and she has little to nothing to elevate it. So, yeah, it would be something if Jada picked minimal ingredients that she knew she could work with, but figured it might trip up her opponent. I don't think that's what happened, but wouldn't that have been something? That would have been some galaxy brain thinking right there. So John is making a seared pork with a chili relleno. He admits he's having trouble just pronouncing some of the words, like tostones. Jade offers to help if he needs it. And you can see her definitely taking Ramsey's words to heart about stepping up as a leader. And yeah, Jada was my first pick when I did the draft with my sibling. And my sibling's first pick was also Jada, but I got to go first. So, you know, we check in on Henry, and he admits that he didn't think ahead about what to do with the endive, and he hopes it pairs well with the prawn. Jada suggests adding cream and making it thinner. So here we go again. Jada going to be the leader for the blue team because they need one. Sydney is making an adobo style chicken, and the anchovies are going to be her salt. And she's not thrilled to have anchovies. Like I said, she did look to immediately regret landing on it. So, 2 minutes left. Sydney says her anchovies are nasty as she's putting the final thing together. And she's having trouble with plating, like she's having trouble squeezing the squeeze bottle properly. But she gets it on the pass. So we've got a guest judge for the day. Ramsey says that this is one of Time's 100 most influential people. And it cuts to commercial. Comes back. It's Chef Gabriella Camara. And I'm going to shoot you straight. I'm not sure if I've heard of her. I feel like I might have heard that name in passing before, but I don't know for sure. And like I said, I'll be honest with you if I know or don't know any celebrity guests they have, but this one I'm genuinely not sure. But Jada calls her almost more of a historian than a chef, and her presence gives her chills. So, would this be like last week where the guest judge is a little intimidating? We shall see. So, first up is the pork tenderloin. Ellie is confident, being from Vegas, because they have a lot of Mexican food out there. She makes tequila braised tenderloin with Fresno. Chef Camara likes the citrus and the tostone, but calls the pork dry. John made a seared tenderloin with chili relleno and pickled peppers. Chef Camara says relleno is one of her favorite things to eat, and she says it's nice, and she gives John the point. Next up, red prawns, Henry versus Alexandra. Henry made a cassava puree with charred endive with butter basted prawn. Chef Camara says everything is on point. Alexandra makes a shrimp diablo. It looks like a taco, but no one ever says it's a taco. Again, not an expert. What do I know? Anyway, it comes with charred endive and jicama matchsticks. Chef Commerce says it works, and the shrimp is cooked well, and they both get a point. And Alexandra points out they are 3 for 3. Whenever they go head to head, they tie. So up next, we got the red snapper. Anaya makes a pepita crusted snapper with chayote relish. And Chef Commerce just says, let's compare. She doesn't give any comments on Anaya's dish. Chris made a pickled beet salad with mangoes and lightly seared snapper. And Chef Comer says the sauce is overpowering. So, Anaya gets a point. We got the flat iron steak next. Cara Marie goes first, and she presents a pastica con limon. Never heard of that. Chef Comer calls the sopapilla overpowering, but still thinks it's a good balance. I'm not sure what any of that meant. Again, I'm just keeping it real with you. This a lot of this challenge went over my head because I do not eat Mexican food. Anyway, Anthony presents his grilled flat iron with mole. I know what mole is, so try not to roast me too hard for that one. Chef Carmel likes the spiciness, and they both get a point. And Cara Marie is happy that she finally scored a point in a challenge. Like the best she had done in a challenge so far was her 2 out of 5 signature dish. Next up, we got the chicken thighs. Sydney versus Jaden. Sydney has a chicken adobo with yellow squash rice and grilled nopales. Despite Sydney's worries, Chef Conroe likes the presentation, but after finding out anchovies were the primary salt source for the dish, felt that the chicken itself was lacking salt. Jade makes an anchovy chicken with anchovy chili oil. They both really just were like, if we gotta put anchovies in, we are making sure that their presence is felt. Chef Connor finds Jane's chicken better cooked, so he gets the point, and the blue team is up by one going into the final round. Let's all take a moment to appreciate this rare occurrence. It's not a tie going into the final round. It could still end in a tie, but it's usually a tie right now. So, yeah, interesting. So, last up, we got Battle of the Skirt Steak. Lisa says it's not your average backyard carne asada. I just noticed another typo. And it has a citrus guajillo marinade and chayote escabeche. Chef likes the salsa and the freshness of the garnish. Sorry, fixing that typo. This was a bad typo. It was an S instead of an A. Chef Comer likes the salsa and the freshness of the garnish and says it's very well done. Last up, we have Jada. We're going to score the win on her first day on a new team. Keep her own winning streak going, basically. She made a homemade flour tortilla tostada with charred corn and chayote relish. Chef Comer finds it well seasoned and also likes her salsa. Ramsey sends them back in line and just asks Chef Comer who's getting the points. And she gives it to the blue team. And Jada is proud to start off her time on the blue team with a win and continuing her winning streak. So, blue team's rewards. They're going to be hosting a fiesta pool party and getting a Mexican lunch from the Scorpion Bar at Foxwoods. Did you know that they're filming at Foxwoods this year? It's not like they tell you every single chance they get. The last two seasons have been a giant advertisement for Foxwoods. Anyway, they will also be getting a spa treatment. And the red team is making tortillas by hand. And Ramsey tries to say tortillas with an accent, like the way that Mexicans would say tortilla. But coming from him with his thick English Scottish hybrid accent, it sounds very weird. Like, don't, like, I get you want to pronounce it properly, but there's a difference between proper pronunciation and cultural appropriation. So, like, tread lightly. Like, just the way I say it, tortilla. That's just, that's just how a basic white guy says tortilla. I'm sorry. So, blue team is off to their rewards, and they enjoy the pool except for Henry. He just goes right for the massage. He's just like, I'm the old dad. I'm getting a massage. Okay. Check in on the punishment. Sydney is having trouble grinding her machine because they're all using these big crank things for making the tortillas. And Sydney's having trouble. And Karen Marie points out that she's doing it the wrong way. It's supposed to be to the right. And Sydney's going left. Sydney seems annoyed that she wasn't told that like 10 minutes earlier. And, she wasn't the only one doing it. Like, she's not the only person cranking it. So she could have just looked around and seen what everybody else was doing if she was having trouble. All I'm saying. Okay. So, stop back in on the reward. We're all having lunch now. Chris tells Jada they're happy to have her. She says that she's happy to be here. Henry asks how not to turn into the red team. Red's been better overall this season, so maybe tread lightly on that one there, Henry. Um, Red team is still working. They're like rolling the tortillas now, and they're all just talking about how tough it is. And Anaya compares herself to a limp noodle and the quote Family Guy, a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. A wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. A wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. You gotta say it 3 times to get it right. So yeah, she said the inflatable things at like the used car dealerships, but that's just where my mind went. I know what she meant. So that cuts to commercial, and it comes back, and it just, without any hesitation, just cuts right to Ramsey saying, "Marina, open up." So yeah, just that was interesting. And I also noticed there was more than half of the episode left, and that confirms to me that this service will be a train wreck. Just an absolute disaster is coming our way. I knew it. So it's Mexican night in HK. They still have the classic menu plus some Mexican specials. We got a lamb birria chili relleno appetizer and al pastor grilled pork chop with Mexican street corn and cotija cheese. And the mariachi band from the beginning is in the dining room. Now for the stations. Appetizers. The blue team we got Jada and Anthony. Red team we got Cara Marie and Ellie. Now the fish station is a little different tonight. It's fish slash pork. And for the blue team, it's Henry and Jaden. For the red team, it's Sydney and Lisa. Meat station, Chris for the blue team, and I for the red team. And on garnish, John for the blue team, Alexander for the red team. Chris is feeling good. They got Jada. They got a new menu to work with. He feels like it's a fresh start. First order is 2 Caesar salad and 2 risotto. Jada is feeling confident and she's moving fast. And her risotto is delicious, I guess, in the pass. But the lobster is overcooked. Jaden is actually the one who cooked it, but Ramsey yells at both Jaden and Henry, which frustrates Henry. And as they're trying to redo it, a fire nearly erupts. But Jaden's refire of the lobster passes. So there's that. Anaya feels good having Sydney and Lisa on the fish station because she thinks they're both very strong. And they proceed to serve raw scallops. Sydney takes responsibility for it, and Ramsey tells him to start the table over. And Sydney knows she's watched HK enough that messing up scallops is her biggest fear. If she's watched this show that much, she should have known not to wear a really short dress on day one. Remember that? She kept having to like tuck it down because it was riding up on her. Yeah, yeah, maybe she should have thought that one through a little better. But yeah, that mistake has Ramsey asking, is this because Jada's not here anymore? And that's just a start. They deny that it's because of Jada. Speaking of Jada, goes back to the Blue Kitchen. Her and Anthony are working really well together on the appetizer station. And we get a montage of Jada serving one plate after another. And Ramsey even remarking on it, like, oh, she's good. Also, I will give Jaden his flowers here. Uh, we see a guy in the dining room saying that it's the best lobster he's ever had. So yeah, blue team off to a good start. But like I said, this is going to be a long edit for the service. So I'm not exactly keeping faith alive. We go back to the red kitchen. Sydney is working on scallops. She leaves them with Lisa for a moment, and Lisa puts butter in it. And it's not like she did it by accident. She deliberately put the butter in. And I have never seen that in 24 seasons of scallops on this show. And I'm just thinking at this point, Lisa is so good in the challenges. And I'm waiting for that version of Lisa to show up during service. Anaya says HK is sink or swim, and they can only help themselves and hope that they get it together. But Sydney and Lisa serve the butter scallops anyway. Ramsey points out that not only is it buttered scallops, and there's also a cold chili relleno. We don't see who's responsible for that, but it had to be Caramel Urelli. So Ramsey calls Jada over from the Blue Kitchen, and it cuts to commercial. He tells Jada to have a word with them, which she does. And then we get a confessional from Alexandra whining that Jada's speech is annoying, not helping. Like, she's acting like Jada chose to come over and do it. Like, Ramsey told her to. So, just, Alexandra just has such a foul attitude. And I just noticed another typo. But they finally start serving appetizers. By now, the blue team is on the entrees. And they got two pork and two New York strip. Sorry, I'll be right back. Sorry. John says that he's ready to stand out on the garnish station, but he brings his fries up. And Ramsey points out that the Mexican cheese is in the fries instead of Parmesan. And the pork is raw. And Henry needs 6 minutes on his pork refire. Chris knows Henry is a good chef, so he expects better out of him, but the refire passes. Now the red team gets the entrees. They also get two pork and two New York strip. And now he's excited to work meat alone. Sydney brings up overcooked pork. And Ramsey calls Jada over again. Gee, Ramsey, does it seem like you have a favorite out of this group? So Jada comes over again, gives more advice, and Naya's frustrated that Ramsey thinks they're no good without her. And she starts slamming things in frustration, which annoys Sydney. But the refire passes. God, how many typos did I make? Back to blue. Here we go again. Two New York strip and two pork. That's a popular order tonight, apparently. Anthony knows that John looks nervous on garnish. This time he brings up fries that have no cheese on them at all. And Ramsey chastises the team for it. Their next attempt has overcooked New York strips, but the next one gets served. Sorry. Alexandra and Anaya bring food to the pass, and Ramsey covers something with a towel. He points out that the garnish has no cilantro in it. He accuses them of switching off and removes the towel. And then it cuts to commercial. Raw salmon and raw chicken. Ramsey kicks them out and asks for two nominees. The red team says that Sydney was the bulk of the problem with the fish station. And again, Sydney is annoyed by this. Sydney's been getting annoyed at a lot of stuff in this episode, I gotta say. Alexandra admits her mistakes on the Garnish station, but thinks Fish should be nominated over her, and also points out that raw chicken is worse than any mistakes she made. And here we go with Sydney getting irked again because Anaya is speaking her mind, and Sydney feels that Anaya always has the floor, and she always gets loud. So the blue team, they finish service, but Ramsey calls it brutal. Says they had a brutal night, and he still wants two nominees out of them. I'm sorry. Give me give me another minute. Sorry. Anyway, blue team starts their deliberation. Anthony says John and Chris. Jaden agrees. John and Chris. John points out Henry's pork struggles and nominates Henry and Chris. Chris says Henry and John. Henry doesn't think he deserves to go home, but nominates Chris and himself. Very risky thing to do, but he says he's holding himself accountable. Jada chooses John and Henry, which makes it a three-way tie. And I double checked. It is. Henry, John, and Chris all have 4 votes. So it is time for the elimination ceremony. It's time for the nomination ceremony. I got Big Brother in my head. My Big Brother book came in the mail today. Shout out Taryn Armstrong. You're the whole reason I'm trying to become a YouTube recapper. But yes, it's time for the elimination. Cara Marie reveals Alexandra as the Red Team's first nominee for her issues on the Garnish Station. Sydney is second for pork and scallops. For some reason, Jada is not the one called for nominees. I guess maybe Ramsey's like, okay, I got to tone it down a little bit now. He calls on Anthony for the nominees. And he says that John is the blue team's first nominee because of his garnished issues. Second is commercial Henry for the pork. So basically, all the two nominees on each team, it's one for garnish and one for pork. Sydney made some other fish related mistakes. With with uh with Henry and Jane, it really kind of seemed like Jane was just doing the actual fish and Henry took the pork because we didn't see Henry do anything else, and we just saw Jaden with the pork. So yeah. So first up is Alexandra. Ramsey points out it's her third time nominated. She says she's willing to fight back, and if she can win his confidence back, then send her home. Ramsey asks Sydney what happened. She admits she rushed her first scallops and wasn't confident enough in them. And Ramsey says he's now doubting his own confidence in her. She says she's a fighter and learns from her mistakes. Ramsey lists all of John's struggles with the fries. John says it was a mental error and it made him wobbly, his words. He says he should stay because he owns up to his mistakes. Henry says he's never dropping this ball again and he's ready to bounce back. Ramsey has made his decision. He says Henry's name, calls it his worst performance, but tells him to get it together and sends him back in line. And Ramsey decides to eliminate John. He's had too many bad services, and tonight's performance alone proves he's not ready. And I noticed everyone seemed sad to see him go. And to be fair, he did seem like a pretty nice guy. And in his goodbye message, he says it was an honor and he'd love to have Ramsey on his farm and cook with him. Ramsey says that he's seen them all do better and he wants them all to wake up. Henry says he wouldn't wish getting ripped to shreds by Ramsey on anybody. Alexandra's disappointed that she's let Ramsey down, but she's like, don't count me out yet. And Sydney is gutted that Ramsey is losing confidence in her, but she's grateful to still have the opportunity to redeem herself. The preview for the next episode. Really messy and kind of goofy, but there is no footage during service. So clearly, the next episode is Cook for Your Life, which I knew already because I saw the press release. So yeah, Cook for Your Life is up next. It's been interesting over the years, to say the least. I would say the last two seasons that they did this, the person who was eliminated was the person who, of everyone who had to compete in the challenge, had been the best overall. I mean, last year, Anthony, I thought was one of the last season's Anthony, not this season's Anthony. But season 23, Anthony, I looked at him as one of the front runners, and he was my first draft pick for the draft I did last year. I had so much faith in this guy, and then he gets eliminated. But like he was so good, Ramsey let him keep his jacket. So yeah, that was. I'm still not over that, to be honest. I was pretty upset with that. And then the year before, this guy wasn't as good as Anthony, but Devin, he was definitely better than everyone he was competing against. But he just had a rough day. But he was certainly better than Jason. And I'd say he was better than Sandra and Atoy as well. And of course, was the last one standing out of all of them. Ay, ay, ay. So yeah, Cook for Your Life. Truly, no one is safe. It's all going to come down to who even has to compete in it. Because if it's like last year, then it'll just come down to who did well in the first challenge of the episode and who didn't. But sometimes Ramsey tells the teams to pick who they think the weakest on the team is. Which, I don't really like it when it goes that way because they can pick whoever they want and it can get a little unfair. Like the first time they did it, season 12, there is no way Richard was the worst person on that team, on the blue team. So, yeah. But he was the old guy, so they kind of ganged up on him, I guess. It should have been Gabriel or Ralph that year. I'm sorry. And Richard ended up surviving. So, yeah. It's like, didn't even matter in the end because he was just, he proved he was the better one. But with the way it's gone lately, with how anyone can leave, I mean, I'm kind of looking at this as like the equivalent, the HK equivalent of The Walking Dead when Negan showed up and he lined a bunch of main characters up in front of him, went eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and then dashed one of their heads in. Well, technically two, but that's beside the point. Um, and not for nothing, when Negan did that, there were 11 characters in front of him. There are 11 people left on HK right now. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. That's the worst. Let's start with the blue team because clearly it was Jada. I mean, Ramsey was like deferring to her when things went wrong, while she was doing absolutely nothing wrong. She was just wiping the floor with everybody around her. And I'm just thinking, this is the most obvious winner edit I have seen since Megan in season 14. Like, we are approaching season two Heather obvious. Like, Heather in season two, you knew she was going to win that season before the season premiere was even over. In fact, Jada was so good in this episode. I almost picked her as the red team's best of the worst because she came in twice. But I decided I will honor the jacket colors and say that the best of the worst for the red team is whichever one of Cara Marie and Ellie didn't serve that cold chili Rihanna. So yeah, one of them. I don't know which one. That's a first when I don't know who the best of the worst was on one team when it's one or the other. All right. Last thing. Did Ramsey make the right decision? Yes, John made some really simple mistakes. Yes, it was the second straight service where he struggled. No, he was never going to win. But Red didn't even finish service, and the blue team did. So as far as I'm concerned, the blue team should have just won the night. Even if Ramsey had to say, like, you know, you didn't win, they just lost, like whatever. I don't think the blue team should have had to nominate anybody when they finished service and the other team didn't. The real person who should have been eliminated? Anaya, raw chicken. That is a cardinal sin in cooking competitions. And it's wild that she wasn't even nominated. Like her name never came up. I mean, I guess Alexandra kind of did, but even then, her official nominees were the Fish Station, Sydney and Lisa. And I'm just like, I think Anaya should have been nominated. I think Anaya should have gone home. Raw chicken is raw chicken. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about it. I'm probably going to stand alone on this one, and Anaya is probably still going to go far in this competition. But raw chicken. That's that's all I have to say. All right, that is going to do it for this stream. Thank you to my one viewer on Twitch, and if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. You can follow me on Twitch. Link is in the description below, but it's Mount Rudmore, like Mount Rushmore, but Paul Rudd, Mount Rudmore. I do stand up comedy, and some of my comedy friends convinced me that should be my username. In case you were wondering, and if you're watching this on Twitch, you can find me Nick Grimes. Just look up Nick Grimes HK, and thank you for watching. And I will see you next time. Peace out.